Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO. Well, hello. Yeah, we always appreciate you being a part of Missoula Real Estate Today, fitting us into your weekends. And thanks to Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, who always brings us great guests on the show. This week, Craig Hartze. Craig owns Apex Home Inspections. I know that you've been here before, but welcome back and good to meet you. I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, so.
Well, thanks, Danny.
Yeah, nice to have you on board. Your background, Craig, what led you to pursue a career in this industry?
Well, after studying construction engineering at MSU here, that other school in our state, I spent about 30 years in the construction industry and decided at that point to maybe look for a little change that might be not quite so tough on my body. So after doing some good hard looking, I came across home inspection and looked into it, and it turned out to be a really good fit for me.
So construction engineering can take a little bit of a physical toll. Huh?
Well, I worked then for 30 years in the construction industry, and you know that's not easy on anybody.
No, sir. Your relationship with Diane Beck and Windermere Real Estate, since Diane sponsors the show, how did you all get acquainted?
Well, it was kind of a neat story. I was looking at becoming certified as a home inspector, and mentioned it to my mother. Well, she happened to be an acquaintance of Diane's, and through some event they were both at, she mentioned it to Diane, and Diane said, well, have him come talk to me. So I went and talked it over with her, and she was very supportive of me getting started in it, and we've developed that relationship and continued that since.
Probably good people to know, huh? Because they're more than likely going to recommend a home inspection somewhere in the transaction, whether it be buyer or seller.
Well, exactly. That's primarily where I get my business is referral from different real estate agents. I mean, they don't directly hire me, but they'll, referrals to their customers. That typically what they should do is say, here's a list of inspectors I've worked with before that I think do good work, and then let the customer do their due diligence. But it's like I say, it's been a great relationship with Diane and her team over the last 6 years that I've been inspecting.
Yeah. And as far as being a home inspector, we don't want listeners to think you just walk around going, "Hi, I'm Craig Hartze, I'm a home inspector." There's a little certification. In fact, the state is getting a little more demanding about that right now, the state of Montana.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to make sure we talked about a little bit today, was that this year our legislature passed a bill that will require home inspectors to be registered with the state of Montana as of the first of the year. Mm-hmm. And it's something that's been long overdue. We were one of, I think, the last 6 states in the country to have any sort of state regulation on home inspectors. So what they've done is say that we've got to have a minimum education and certification. We have to be a member of one of the main national associations, which is where I got certified through, was InterNACHI is my national association that I'm a member of. We have to show that carry workman's comp insurance or have the proper exclusions, and that we carry all the proper insurance that we're supposed to have. And it's very similar to our state's contractors registration system, whereas it's not called a license, but very similar to that sort of thing.
Why do you think the state finally acted on that, Craig? You mentioned there's only about 6 states left in the country that have not. Was it becoming a situation in Montana where, I said jokingly at the top of the show, you can't just go out and say, I'm a home inspector, but were people going out and just saying, I'm a home inspector, and they figured, well, that was it damaging the credibility of your industry, I guess, by not having more certification requirements?
Well, I think that's certainly the point. Like you say, up until this point, there was no regulation. Anybody could hang a shingle and say, I'm a home inspector. Now we know that there are at least minimum standards that anybody's going to meet as long as they can show you that they do have that state registration.
All right. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, and our guest this week, Craig Hartze. Craig owns Apex Home Inspections. And Craig, how have you seen your business change and grow over the past few years? Are more buyers and sellers recognizing the value of a home inspection?
Well, I think that's absolutely true, Denny. Over the last 5-6 years, I see a higher percentage of home buyers getting a home inspection before they purchase a place. One interesting thing is you see some of the government lending programs have started to require home inspections before they'll approve some of the government-sponsored loan programs.
Let's make an appointment with you, and that's a great point. We have had some mortgage lending institution people on the show in the past few months here on Missoula Real Estate Today, and that is something that they did address. So, going to make an appointment with you. I'm looking to buy a home, let's say, and let's also say it's not empty yet, and I'd like Apex to do a home inspection. What is the process? Where do we start?
So, well, we start generally with a phone call, and we'll discuss what you're looking at. We always gonna look at the size and age of a home. That's going to determine what our rates are. That's our biggest influences on how much time it takes me to do an inspection. We'll schedule things out and get it scheduled. Typically we'll spend 3 to 4 hours on a home inspection. So that's a pretty good chunk of a day right there. And most often I'll try and have my client come by at the end of my inspection so that I can walk them through, show them anything I've found, make any recommendations. I want to make sure anybody I deal with has a thorough understanding of what they're getting into. That to me, my report to them when I get done with an inspection is a great tool for them, not only for taking care of their transaction they're working on now, but in the future going down the road.
You certainly don't want to be involved in any kind of a confrontational situation, but the homeowner, what do you mean you're coming in and doing an inspection in the house I'm trying to sell you? What is this guy going to do? Has that ever come up and be an issue?
It's gotten to where it's most people are expecting them when they sell something to have an inspection done. It years ago, I think you got that sort of reaction, but anymore, I think most people expect it. And it's something something to keep in mind. If you're the seller, you have every right to stay in your home while it's being inspected, and I certainly respect that. It's one thing to keep in mind is, by definition, a home inspection is a visual inspection of the home at a certain point of time. So it's not like I'm going to come in. I'm actually not allowed to move personal belongings.
Okay.
I'm not going to come in and make a mess out of your house and poke through anything that I'm not supposed to. It's an unobtrusive inspection.
Yeah, okay. That was kind of going to be part of my next question, because I'm guessing that you've developed that trained eye like a detective there. You are looking around the instant you step out of your vehicle or as you're pulling up to the place, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Before I even get out of my vehicle, I'm looking at the roof line. I'm because some of that is easiest to see from a distance. So I'm looking at it before I even really pull up to it. But as you say, it's quite a process. I start with a cursory view from a distance, and as I'm walking up the walk to the door, I'm already inspecting.
What are you seeing up on that roof line there that you might have to report?
Well, we're looking for if we see any sort of a sag in the
Sure.
ridge peak, that sort of thing. That's going to show us there's some structural issues.
Yeah, and up into the entryway, and away you go with your visual. What are some of the more or the most common problems you see when you're doing a home inspection?
Well, honestly, it seems to me that the most common issues I come across are roof problems, roofing issues, and probably after that, electrical issues, which kind of to back up maybe a little bit, Danny, what we're really looking for when we do home inspections. First, we're looking for structural problems.
Yeah.
Then we're looking for safety concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, everything kind of boils down to maintenance or cosmetic issues.
And what might be some examples of that? You brought up electrical. What is it doing a visual that you might see just right at the beginning that because as you say, you're not moving stuff around, you're not digging down in the walls in the attic or whatnot. You are just straight on looking. What are some things that might jump out at you as a potential problem?
Well, one of the things I do is I use a tester, and I test for ground fault interrupt protection in the proper places, kitchens, bathrooms, any place within 6 feet of an open water source. And we want to make sure that's all protected for your safety. The one item that I'm allowed to take apart is the cover off of a breaker panel. So I do pull covers and inspect inside breaker panels, and you'd be amazed how often I find what I call amateur wiring issues inside of somebody's breaker panel.
Not factory, right? Somebody did a little ad-libbing.
That tends to happen. So that's always that obviously becomes a safety concern.
Sure,
It's something we
yeah.
want to get a licensed electrician to take a look at.
What? So you make I guess I'm trying to differentiate in my head, and there might not be any difference at all. Recommendations and inspections, but recommendations. You've done your inspection. Here's what I see. Here's areas of concern that I see. I suggest you do this to correct them. Can you do that, or do you just need to present your findings? Here are the facts. Here's what I've seen.
Well, kind of what it boils down to in my report. It'll list the issue that I've found.
Yeah.
Say we've got a outlet in the kitchen that's not protected with a ground fault interrupt device.
Right.
So in my report, it'll list that this is the issue. Then it says why is this an issue? Well, obviously It's a safety concern because of possible electric shock. Next part of that issue in the report then is a recommendation on what to do about it, which in that case would be have evaluated and corrected by a licensed electrician.
And you mentioned upcoming state requirements. The form you're using, is that a statewide form and a national form? What are you working off of there when you're actually doing your inspection?
Well,
it's not Craig's form on a handwritten on a legal pad.
No, it's not. It's what I use is some really good software that was developed here about 4 years ago. That was really kind of neat because I was part of the beta test program on it.
Oh.
So they actually utilized a lot of our input in developing this software
Excellent.
to help build our reports.
Wow.
There are a couple of states in the country that use a state mandated reporting form, but other than those one or two, we're up to our own devices for what we are going to use for report formats.
Yeah. All right. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest this morning, Craig Hartze, owner of Apex Home Inspection on Missoula Real Estate Today. So, Craig, tools and equipment that you've invested in, just like everything else, what has technology done to help make you more efficient and successful? What gadgets and gizmos have you had to keep up with over the years?
Well, the first basic was my ladders. That I've got to get up and have a look at those roofs and stuff, right? So that, I go from the very basic to some pretty high end stuff. I use infrared thermal imager, which is a really neat tool. Of course, an expensive tool.
Yes,
but,
got to invest in your business. Yeah,
absolutely. What that can do is show me hidden moisture problems. When anything wet is the moisture's evaporating.
Yeah.
It shows up cold on a thermal scan. It can also show me electrical hotspots. See, I've got an arcing connection in an outlet box. It can help show stuff like that. Missing insulation. I find you'd be surprised how often I'll find areas where there's missing insulation in a home that shows up really quick and easy with the thermal scan. I use moisture meters, of course, electrical testers, right down to simple hand tools, a screwdriver for pulling that cover off of that breaker box.
Yeah, structure, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, etc. And you mentioned the typical length of an inspection. I'm sure that varies a lot. Depends on the size and, as you said, the age of the house or maybe a building or things like that. But say the average homeowner, buyer, or seller type transaction.
I wind up spending typically 3 hours, 3+ hours on the actual inspection. It's something that myself, I feel I want to make sure I'm very thorough when I do it.
Yeah.
So I make sure that we schedule plenty of time, and you never know. I might get into something that I want to spend extra time on too. So I always make sure I always schedule plenty of time so that I'm very thorough for my clients.
Well, I like that idea. I assume customers do as well. If I'm going to invest in having a home inspection done, I want to make sure the guy that's doing it is not just whipping through here in 25 minutes so he can get on to the next home inspection.
Yeah, and it's not something you can hurry. There's certain you've got to get. I'm in crawl spaces. I'm in the attic and all that sort of stuff. It builds up and takes time, but it's fulfilling for me. There aren't many people out there that say they like to crawl through crawl spaces, but I actually enjoy it.
I'm going to ask you this question anyway. Before we went on the air, we were kind of talking about, well, let's cover this and that, and you said this wasn't much of a part of your business, but I think maybe I still want to bring it up because by your own admission, a very, very, very small percentage of your business has nothing to do with buying or selling. I mean, there's a transaction in here. The homeowner or the prospective buyer, they want to hire you to do a home inspection, but I mean, home or business owners who just want to get a checkup on their structure. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's peace of mind involved, and you would certainly entertain and welcome those customers. Just so they know, we're just saying out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, it wasn't a very big percentage of the business I do, but I do on occasion get that call from a homeowner that just would like a good checkup on their house, which you think about it, you take your car in to get it checked out every once in a while. Your home's your biggest investment in most people's lives. It's not a bad idea to get it checked up. And for me to come in and spend a few hours and give you a good, thorough list of the overall condition and any problems with it could be a very good investment.
Absolutely. Maybe you could even offer a home inspection light. You only do about a portion of what you normally do, or you go through it a little bit quicker, things like that.
Well, actually, Denny, we call it a partial inspection. If somebody has a certain concern that maybe they're afraid they've got something going on in their attic, they can hire an inspector to come in, just check that out for them. Yeah, so please, you homeowners, whether you're looking to buy or sell, please keep Craig in mind for this. It's something to think about. Like you say, using an automobile is a good example. You do maintenance on that. Why not have a few things inspected on your home along the way? Craig Hartze of Apex Home Inspection, our guest today on Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. I think that's a good lead-in, Craig, to other services you offer. Let's get started with radon testing. Tell us about that part of your business. Well, the radon testing is probably the other biggest part of my business. Most people doing a real estate transaction when they're buying a new home, they want to make sure that we're safe on radon. Now, for general information, not everybody understands what radon is. Exactly. So radon is a radioactive gas that's part of the natural breakdown of uranium. Well, with uranium, it exists in the ground, and almost all of our country has some amount of uranium in the ground, and it can vary. It's really crazy. It can vary from literally one house to the next, where one house can test high on radon, and the next one's just fine. So part of it is our construction techniques. We've learned how to build houses to help block that better. Then we have mitigation systems to help remove it if we do have it. But before we can get to that step, we've got to test and see if there's an issue there. And the big concern with the radon gas is it's the second leading cause of lung cancer in our country after smoking.
Where does western Montana stack up on a nationwide comparison? Is this a high area of radon content, would you say?
You know, it's the EPA has put out some maps of the country, and they're kind of bands that run across the country. And as it seems, as we get farther north, the typical levels increase. So, yeah, we are in one of the higher levels of our country in Montana.
That ties into indoor air quality, I guess, in a way. What other air quality issues might you find that could be of concern, or maybe people contact you and maybe say, hey, I have a concern about this. Would you come take a look at it? What other air quality issues might come up?
Well, one of the other biggest is that four-letter word that people in the real estate business here is mold, which can be to a lot of. We had some toxic mold scares here quite a few years ago that were nationally publicized and kind of created a lot of scare in a lot of people. I don't think was as serious as what they built that up to be at that time. The actual toxic mold is a very, very tiny fraction of 1% of what we find in all total molds. But when we find mold in a house, what it tells us, especially in our climate, which is very dry, mold requires two things to grow: moisture and a food source. Well, mold likes to eat cellulose. What are our homes made of? Wood, which is cellulose, right? So they've got it's got plenty of food there. Yeah. The other thing it needs is moisture. And so when we find mold in a home in our area, to me, the biggest thing is it tells us we got a moisture problem somewhere. Yeah. We've got a hidden water leak. We've got a condensation problem. We're lack of ventilation, say in an attic type of thing. So to me, mold becomes a twofold problem in our homes, because now we have a mold remediation issue.
Yeah.
But we also have to find that root problem where that moisture is coming from. So we want to make sure we locate that and so that can be taken care of too.
So as a home inspector, you're on the outside looking in. Well, you're on the outside, you're walking in now. And I guess I would liken it in a way to, let's say you walk into a house where somebody who lives in that house is a smoker, and you're going to know, if you're not, you're going to notice that immediately when you come in. They may not notice it because they've just become conditioned to it over the years. When you walk into a home to do an inspection, not for mold, do you just you kind of sniff around or look around and go, we're going to find mold sometimes?
Well, you've got your signs of mold that you're keeping an eye out for doing any inspection.
Right.
Like you say, quite often you can smell it if it's a bad enough situation. Typically, it's visual signs, though. You'll see staining. You'll see the actual growth of mold. Typically, where we see it is in crawl spaces or attics in our homes, because for one, that's where people. How often do you go in your attic or your crawl space?
Sure.
If you've sprung a small leak in your plumbing in your crawl space, you may not know it. Could be years, literally.
Yep.
But that excess moisture in there, it could very well cause a mold issue.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest, Craig Hartze of Apex Home Inspections, and also a special thanks to some of Diane's marketing partners that help bring you Missoula Real Estate Today. Rob Fleming with Man Mortgage, Miles Link of Opportunity Bank of Montana, and Carol Blodgett with MakeItMissoula.com. Okay, Craig, what is the remediation process on both here? We started talking about radon and we moved our way to mold, but for each of those, typically what is the remediation process?
Well, a little bit different for both of them.
Yeah, sure.
Radon, typically what we want to do is we want to seal it out. So in our crawl spaces, we'd like to see a plastic vapor barrier covering any exposed earth. We want to see insulation blankets on the crawl space walls with a vapor barrier, basically a plastic layer on the inside of that. And that once that's all sealed up, we want to make sure that crawl space is vented. which at this time of year is a great point to bring up, Denny. If you own a home with a crawl space, it'll have vents around the outside, typically. So it's supposed to, actually, these days.
Mm-hmm.
But most people in our climate tend to close those off for the winter and then leave them. Well, by doing that, they're trapping any excess moisture in that crawl space. So what I typically recommend that in our climate, yes, to save a little energy, okay, close it for the coldest 2 months of the year. Make sure they're open for the rest, though. We want to make sure we've got that ventilation to get that excess moisture out of there. And same thing goes with the attic. Our attics are ventilated so that we move that moisture out. And the attic has some special considerations because we have warm air in our house, and that actually kind of pushes moisture into our attic. So we put a lot of special consideration into attic ventilations when we build our homes.
How about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, when we go to a mold situation, now you want to look into hiring a certified remediation company that knows proper techniques to come in, clean up the mold, and offer recommendations on how to prevent it from coming back. And like I say, we always wanted to find that root cause of where that moisture's coming from and get that taken care of.
How about a success story or two or three or however many you want to share? Any job you've done recently that really made you feel good about what you do?
Well, some of the most enjoyable inspections I do are pre-selling inspections for people that are thinking about listing their home.
Okay.
And it's a great idea to have an inspector come in, go through your home. Now, if any issues that you find, you've got time to deal with. You're not dealing with a bad roof in a time crunch of a 2-week real estate transaction. You've got time to work with that. Find a contractor you like that can get in a reasonable amount of time, not having to get in there in the next short time period. I did one here just a couple of months ago where we found, even though he thought his roof was in good shape, it wasn't. It was when they bought the home, they were under the impression that the roofing material was newer than it actually turned out to be.
Yeah.
So now he's got time to work with that, and in the end, going to save him a fair amount of money because he's not on that time crunch. Also, in that same home, happened to find a water leak underneath a custom shower that he'd had done. That any inspector, a good inspector on a real estate transaction is going to spot. And now, again, that's a big repair that has to be dealt with under a time constriction.
Right. Well, and I guess the other thing I like about that idea, as if you, the home seller, you're getting ready to sell your home, and you hire Apex, you get a home inspection done, now you got some paperwork. It's kind of like if you're going to sell the vehicle, you can show, well, I just had this repaired, I just had this looked at. It's nice to have that credibility rather than just saying, oh, no, the roof is fine. Here's some certification on that. I think that would be an excellent investment if I were to be selling a home.
Yeah, again, like I say, that report that I produced for you, which incidentally is what I should have mentioned earlier when we talked about it. It's actually a web-based interactive report, so that it's really easy for different people to view, and then we also print a hard copy that you can present to prospective buyers.
Our thanks to Craig Hartze with Apex Home Inspection for coming on Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere. We're out of time other than to say, how do I find Apex Home Inspections, Craig?
Well, we can always give us a call at 406-580-4708, and always love to get people having a look at our website. Is Apex Inspections, MT as in Montana.com.
Outstanding. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate having you.
Thanks, Denny.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today. We hope you found this morning's information to be helpful. If you have any suggested topics for any future Missoula Real Estate Today programs, or any questions about buying or selling, contact Diane Beck with Windermere Real Estate. Email dianebeck@realtor.com. or visit her website, homesinmissoula.com. That's homesinmissoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.